I tend to think from my perspective, regardless of your training and your experiences, your ability to create safe space is probably the most important thing that we can take in there with us.
Yeah.
Both from a physical and an emotional perspective. You can have all the skills that you want, you can have all the experience you want, but, and this is me talking, the inability to create a safe space, it just doesn't work. Then it just doesn't work.
Being at the door when they're coming in, if you can, because if you just look busy and flustered and you're like still trying to get everything in place while they're coming in and you're saying, "Oh, I'll be with you in a second, guys," then that's not helping anyone's anxieties or even excitement or curiosity to get stuck into something. So being at the door and smiling, although if you ask my wife, she'd say I was the grumpiest person in the world, but when I'm in a drum circle, I'd naturally be smiling because I know what's potentially going to happen. It's an exciting time. So being there from the minute they walk in and actually just being with them. So at the start, you're kind of saying, look, this is new for a lot of people. Some people may have had it before, but you're going to be all right. Look, what's the worst that can happen? It's an hour. And then you can run away if you want to, but again, going back to using humor and just saying, look, when I walked into my first drum circle, yes, I was excited, but I was also going, what's going on here? So just saying that you've been through that as well helps people relax. Also having a variety of instruments, because that piques curiosity too, and they're like, oh, can't wait to get to the chime bars, or what are those little orbs, like tongue drums and those softer instruments that look visually beautiful as well. And yeah, just things like that, just being present. I've walked into workshops and other things where they've given you the impression that they're unavailable until they start, and they say, welcome everyone, today we're going to do death by PowerPoint, and you never get a sense of that person. They're just there to deliver something, and get paid. But I think we come at it differently because we know how good a good drum circle can be, and we want people to know that from the start and not just say, wait and see, you'll be okay.
I think really remembering what it feels like to be joining some kind of group for the first time, and how much there's that sense of I'm even now I find it really hard to go out and join a new group all by myself. There's that tremendous sense of like, are there unwritten rules? Do I get to touch a drum or not? Whose drums where? If there's instruments on the seats, does that mean they're already taken? Or so it's that real sense of actually continually we need to, as facilitators, go back to square one, and put ourselves in that place and in those shoes. So that's probably number one. And then I think is always finding that center of gravity where at least at some point everybody can participate and have a success, even if not everybody's able to come with you. But where can we kind of find that equilibrium, or that kind of sense that, wow, at this point everybody's nailed it, everybody's done something, even if it's just a rumble and a stop. And I think to find whatever that point is with the group and then build from there, and try and build success by success, would be probably kind of key to it for me.
How do you feel? And I love that. But there's a sense of how do you make people feel safe? How do you make them feel able to express themselves in a safe, enable them to become vulnerable, enable them to be themselves within that kind of circuit that you've set up?
Yeah, I think being able to be vulnerable myself as well and to go there, I think in many groups, for me to be all right with people who might not want to play a drum at the moment, and who might just, for them, it might be as much as they can do to sit in that room, and be in a group with other people and just be seeing what's going on. That might be hugely overwhelming, and if they're there, that is a success. It's a success just to walk through the door, and take a seat. And I think to acknowledge those as successes as well, and something that people can still contribute by their presence, as long as it's not an antagonistic presence. That's like a different thing. But I think for it to be safe, just to be there at your level of freaking out is fine. And I've lost my train of thought now. And I think offering kind of multiple ways to engage in something, so that there's, I think, I do a lot of activities and exercises, and there's usually some form of get out that isn't totally a get out as well. So if it's a turn taking thing and we're passing little solos around the circle, actually you could do it with one hit. Or, at one level further back, you could even just choose the next person to have a go. So there's still something, it's not that people are let completely off the hook. There's still something a bit asked of you, but actually it's totally possible. And we're able to do that and to be there in that way.
So the beginning is intention for me. So before anybody comes to the program, how I set the room up, how I go and spend time in the space, the thoughts that I put into the space about what I would like for people who are coming. Without getting religious, it's a prayer for me. I have my own kind of, for want of a better word, let's call it a ceremony. I do things in the room, and I sit quietly and I contemplate and I send out a prayer that everybody's going to get what they need. And they're going to have a connecting time. And then as people arrive, I practice softening. It's a physical thing. I practice letting go of the story that I've got in my head about who it is that I'm supposed to be. Letting go of any idea about what I'm supposed to look like because I'm the trainer. Letting go of all of that story and just meeting them with a smile and an open heart and listening to them, because they've just arrived at something. They've no idea what they're going to go through. They might be terrified, and I want them to land and get a human touch when they land. And I make it really important to meet everyone where I can. And my role before I became a trainer was the role that you now have, which you do beautifully. And you're doing that, right? That's why you ended up in the role, because you're already doing that. You see that in people. You see how people arrive. You see how somebody's maybe not as outwardly comfortable in the situation as everybody else, or someone's hanging off to the edge a little bit, and you know how to approach them and not scare them or freak them out, and you know how to notice everyone. And so my training in pre-becoming a trainer was doing the role that you did. And I sneaked into that role because previous training teams were dropping the ball. Not to be critical, but things were getting missed. And I would just be picking up things that I could see needed picking up. Not because I needed to be seen, but because someone was having a hard time and they needed an arm around their shoulder, and I just saw it and went and gave it. And that got noticed. And then I was invited into the team, and then, one thing led to another. And so I think the intention there at the beginning is the most important thing for me. And then just this, we'll go back to the word awareness again. Keep your eyes open, and be looking for the tiniest little signal that someone's not okay, and go do something about it. And if you can't, have someone amazing in your team that can.
Just a sense of intention and awareness, and trusting in other people that will also pick up the ball if you're focused.
Right. So there's intention, there's awareness, and there's action.
Yeah.
Like all it's no good having the awareness and the intention if you do nothing. So again, it's like there's a degree of risk taking in all of this, like approaching someone who's vulnerable and nervous, and it's like if I'm trying to help be an ally in the current situation around Black Lives, I might say the wrong thing. I might not get it. I might not get it right. I might not understand it as well as I could understand it. And the only way I'm going to find out is by opening my mouth and dropping my foot in it, and have someone say, "Hey, do you know?" And it's like, "Of course." And then I learn, and so it's like, don't be frightened of getting it wrong, because if that stops you from leaning into somebody when they need that, then you're going to be like, "Oh, I shouldn't do this." And again, I learned through my own process that leaning in and asking was much more empowering for everybody all around than not doing anything at all.
Yeah, 100%.
And then, as you know, when Arthur approached me and asked me to join the training team, and me and Jane knew that we were going to be stepping into that role, immediately my first concern was, who's going to do the job that I was doing? Because it needs to be done, and it was a no-brainer that you were going to be that person. So we knew you were the right person for that job. We knew. There was, and I'm really happy that you accepted that role, because it's not a paid gig. You're not getting a Rolls Royce and all your expenses met, and it says a lot about the person that you are, that you took it on and that you do it so beautifully, and I'm very grateful that you do.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm quite a kinesthetic person. So when I go into it, if I go into, no matter where the workshop is, whether, as I said, it's a prison or a psych unit or a school, when I go in, I first of all have to look at the space that they give me, and I kind of do say in advance, these are the spaces that I like. This is the most suitable space. So I do lay that down at the beginning. But like, I couldn't go into the prison and light candles, just absolutely not going to happen. But what I can do is I usually have, there's a method I have where I work from the outside in. So I'll have the set drums on the outside, and then I have another layer kind of in the inside. I normally have some kind of a centerpiece that's a central point, because in my workshops, we work from the outside in. So we start sitting on the chairs with the drums, and eventually we move in to the center where there's the more softer, quieter percussion. We go into a more sensual space. So visually, when someone walks into the room, not only are they seeing the drums, that they're seeing this kind of, centerpiece that's in the middle. That it's a curiosity, as in, like, I can see that people just like, what? I just want to get in there and touch everything, So the presentation to me is whether it's the light, I look at the light, I look at the seating. If I can, I'll bring in a light, I'll bring in a lamp, I'll bring stuff with me to create a space. Does that make sense? Because it's very, very important that when people come into a space, that first of all, there has to be a sense of intimacy in that space for it to work. Now, again, this all depends on the groups that you're working with. If I was working with a large group, it's very difficult. But I still think that when you're using the tool of percussion and instruments, and you are going on a journey, no matter what the group is, you're going on a journey, there has to be a connection between the people in that group. Every person in that group has to have a relationship to everyone else in that group. Whatever level that relationship is, there is a relationship there. And for that to happen, when someone walks into a space, into the room, there has to be almost a sense of safety and intimacy. So one of the big things for me is privacy. The room has to be private. No windows, people looking in from outside, nobody walking in and out. We're in that space, the door is closed. It's almost like we're cocooned in that space. Different if I'm in a space where there isn't a flow in and out, that people need that, especially mental health, they need the freedom to leave if they need to. That's okay. But in the majority of spaces, everyone's in, the workshop is starting, door is closed, there might be a light, there might be a lamp, I might even have an artificial candle, depends. I might even have a real candle, depends on the group. But people know when they're entering into this space, there's a safety here. And door shut, now we're going on a journey. Does that answer your question?
That answers the physicality of it. But how emotionally do you kind of create that safe space?
How emotionally? How emotionally do I create the safe space? I think that the crucial element is trust, because I get people coming in to workshops, and I'm sure every facilitator will say the same. And the first thing they want to do is they want to say to me, oh, I can't drum and I can't sing. I'm just letting you know that I'm not able for this.
Yeah.
You know, you're nodding because you've had that, haven't you?
Yeah.
People want to go, so they want to say to you in advance, don't expect anything from me. You know, don't expect anything. So my role as facilitator is, you know, to say to everybody, listen, I absolutely know you can sing. I know you can drum. You know, whatever you present with me to me is perfect. There's no such thing as wrong. There's no mistakes. You can't sing anything wrong. You can't play anything wrong. And I very clearly say to them, you know, if you think your voice is wonky, then that's fantastic, because I love wonky voices, because your wonky voice can be the icing on the cake of the harmony that we need to make this beautiful. So in other words, I'm immediately saying to them, this is a space where everything is welcome. You're welcome. The chaos you bring with you is welcome. The chaos you bring physically, verbally, energetically, musically, emotionally, I can handle it. I've got your back. And that's a word I use often, is it's okay, I've got your back. So and I say those words, and I'll say to them, it's fine, you know, there's no such thing as a mistake, and then, you know, and I just give it a go, experiment, see what you're capable of, you know. And I have this particular song that I do where I say to them, somebody else take on the call and response, and no matter how tiny your voice is, no matter if it's only a whisper, we'll hear you and we'll respond. You know, be brave. So from the very get-go, I have their back as a facilitator. And it's a verbal. And the most important thing is, I genuinely have their back. I genuinely want each person in that room to have the same experience I had when I walked in 20 years ago to that room in the very first workshop. You know?
What I do is, first of all, be myself. I don't have to act. I don't have to be someone else. I don't want to be the coolest facilitator in the world or in the room.
Yeah.
And just entering the room and meeting the group, having in mind that you are serving that group, changes something I talk about myself, changes something in my way of being there. And this is a starting point for me, because I can remember at the beginning, my idea is, now I go in the room, I meet the group, and they, from the first activity, they have to love me. So what I used to enter, boom. It's a way, okay? I don't know if it's the best way to create a safe environment, because it was about me, not about the group. You have to love me.
Yeah.
It was a show. It wasn't a facilitation. So also in this case, some rules are really similar to every environment, like drum circle, body music. I usually go on. We do some warm up. We check if we are good, and then I start doing simple things all together. So not splitting the group at the beginning. So we are working in full group, and then I really, if I use a lot irony, and I'm a stupid guy, so it can be an important tool sometimes. So yeah, smiling. No, don't take yourself too seriously. This is an important rule for me. and I love to smile about myself, uh, um, and I love to smile also with all the group. So is the only way, I think, is my way of creating a safe environment. So technically, yeah, I work with all the group. I try to obviously listening and observe everyone. So if I can see now really better if there is something that has some difficulties. So for example, if there is someone that has difficulties, I stop, I do another thing, and I give suggestions in general, not connected with the person, and I go on like this, or I try to find strategies to solve that,
Mm.
to give people the tools to go on.
I always begin with myself, and I did that in therapy as I do this with, if I'm working with a group. And within what's possible, I need to have a sense of safety myself. So in how I set up the environment, who do I liaise with, who are my helpers, what's the container like? And so if I feel that I'm okay in this container enough, because there are also edges. Sometimes you work in within cultures that are a bit edgy to maybe how you are, and you can't always feel completely comfortable. But so container, within possible, I would try and set up so that I'm okay in it. And once I'm okay in it, I feel that mostly I make sure that I make a direct contact with each member of the group, if I am with the group, that they feel that I notice them individually, and that they all matter. I will do what we do again, flipping therapists, we do check-in, personal development groups, check-in. Depending on where, if I work in a festival or I'm in the square here, I won't do that. But when it's a more intimate group and a more kind of a group that's about our health, our well-being, I'll encourage people to do a little check-in. So just simple things like to say their name and either how they are at that particular moment in time, few words, or why have they come to the circle, why did they want to do this, and then we go and we rumble for each of them each time they've said something. It personalizes things and so that people feel welcome, stressing from the beginning to help with the anxiety that might be that this is not a lesson, it's not about getting it right, I'm not a teacher and they're not there for me. They're there to explore and find out their own beautiful creativity, and that it will happen, and I'm there to encourage them, not to criticize. And this is repeated and demonstrated throughout the circle at several points, because it's quite it's what we go into a circle with. Is the fear that this is, I don't have any rhythm, I don't have a sense of rhythm, I can't drum, I don't know how to do this, and what if I get it wrong? And what do you want from me? What's expected of me here? So yeah, I encourage them to also connect with each other, so to know each other by name possibly, and witness each other in a positive way.
I think the first thing I try to do is create the physical space. That means these days to care for distance.
Of course, yeah.
And to be aware of when distance is getting too small, when there's too less distance, and trying to be aware of people feeling awkward, maybe because of that. And I am still learning. So of course that's this is a new task for me. So physical space means also there are ways to come into the circle and there are ways to get out of the circle. So this is the physical thing. Then there's the auditive thing, not being too loud or taking care of the loudness of the volume. And of course, it's the cognition thing. Like there are no mistakes, and maybe saying it more often than I does. There are no mistakes. There are no mistakes. There are no mistakes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and this inviting thing, inviting everybody. I try to, if there are not too many people, I try to invite everybody or to welcome everybody individually. I used to shake hands with everybody.
Yeah.
So, yeah, make contact with everybody
Yeah.
individually, and to invite myself, first of all, to create a safe space for me.
Yeah.
So
What
if
does that entail? What does that entail?
that means that I try to be there long before it starts. So I'm there at least 1.5 hours before the start, and I love having finished everything half an hour before people arrive, because they arrive half an hour too early. So I really try to be ready to have sorted out everything, that there's a mallet everywhere, stuff like this, so that I can have some minutes on my own.
And what do you do in that kind of space?
Well, if this space is there, I don't manage to create it every time.
No, but when you do,
But if I do, I try to be aware of the space that is there. I try to be aware of the instruments and where they are, and I try to be aware of myself and how I feel. And
How do you create the safe spaces? Yeah.
Listening, watching, and when you think that you are a facilitator and you are serving the others, the safety space, no, is when you are your attention is in the others, not in you, just to make the others be very comfortable in that place, in all the senses, not only physic, no, a chair, but always in the atmosphere, the feelings, or what is happening there, just to be very open in all the senses.
Yeah.
I think
It's calibrating very much the group, the place, and there goes the setting and adapting to with who you are working with. So if it's kids in a way, dress code in ways of speaking, or if it's with corporate another way. So, but I think this making safe space and and going very slowly. I think at the beginning we need to start and let people sink in, like slowly, and don't think that you will have to play, you will have to dance, you will have to sing. It's like
creating platforms.
Yeah.
Platforms. And we work with platforms, and always is appearing the metaphors of the drum circles, working in platforms, serving the group.
There's no mistakes.
There's not mistakes.
Have fun.
Keep it short and simple.
No wrong notes.
No wrong notes.
It's all good. So no wrong notes. So this, I think, creates a safe space, because if they say, okay, there's no wrong notes, great. I don't have to play. You don't have to do anything that you don't want to. Okay, so we don't. And at the end, everybody jumps in, because everybody can clap, and once you're clapping, clap with the other person. So everybody jumps in at the end. So it's creating the space, yeah, with all these messages at the beginning, creating a nice setting, creating that people feel comfortable, I think.